Well, welcome everyone. So we're very excited to have Dr. Scott Keller here today. Specializes in functional medicine and owns Thrive Chiropractic and Acupuncture. So welcome.
My wife does, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're excited to hear your story, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, gosh, just first of all, thank you guys and Josh, who's in that office back there, was the one that connected us. So he's a friend of mine, and appreciate this. I thank you guys for being here. I just hope, it looks like we have a good seasoned crowd of business owners or people that have been in the business place. So hopefully I have something to add or some value to add for you today. This is a little different for me because I speak and I talk a lot. And so number one, I hope the mic, you let me know, tech guy, because if I'm yelling too much, I get pretty passionate when I talk. This is a little different topic for me. When I'm talking about healthcare and just what I do, I get very passionate. And I'm usually standing up and moving and pacing and probably spitting on people in the front row. So we don't have that problem today. But so I just appreciate, I just love teaching. I love educating. I'm an educator at heart. So, and today, the topic, of course, I think with this whole Perk Up is just entrepreneurship, business ownership. Definitely owned multiple businesses and done many things in my career over the last 15 or so years. And yeah, there's been a lot of lessons learned along the way. I'm kind of one of those type of people who, what's the old saying? It's not failure. Every time you fail at something, it's really just a chance to learn and grow and experience. And I did not used to, maybe in my more immature business ownership days, I took failure or things that didn't go our way very hard. Like really hard. Like I felt like a failure in many ways. But I'll tell you what, that's just the wrong way to go about life, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced like failure is a chance and an opportunity to grow. I heard this, and I don't think anybody in this room has heard me talk, but if you have, or if you're watching and you know that tangents are my thing. So I have like a thing here to kind of keep me on track as far as what I wanted to talk about, but thoughts pop into my brain and I'm like, okay, I'll go that direction. So I heard this a while back from a different coach, mentor type person. I never heard this before, and I don't know why this just came to my brain, but maybe somebody needs to hear it, is every event in life is neutral. Has anybody ever heard that before? Every event in life is neutral. What does that mean? It means basically you have the choice to respond to it how you want to, right? So you can walk around and mope and grope and complain and whine and get depressed, get anxious, all these things, which of course with what I do in functional medicine, those are real things, anxiety and depression, neurochemical, neurology, there's all sorts of things that go into that. But really a lot of it can come down to mindset too. Like if something bad happens to me when I walk out the doors today, right? I hope not, but if it does, how am I gonna handle that? In my past life, years ago, I would have been, why did that happen to me? Oh my gosh, I get upset, frustrated, whatever, if it was something bad. Instead of that, why not just take it, breathe, take a moment, let it soak in. It's neutral. How am I gonna perceive it and then respond to it? And I think that served me really well in the later years of business, because whether it's with team members, employees, even patients of mine that I'm frustrated with. Like I told you to do this. In order to meet your goals, you need to do this. You're not doing this. So how do I handle that with patient care? I mean, this can apply to relationships, marriage, family, kids. I mean, you can really apply that to anything. So anyway, I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And I guess, anybody watching, I apologize. On my computer versus the screen, there was just some techie issues. So if there's issues with the formatting, that's why. And that is, there we go. Now it's working. So, okay, doctor. This is a point that I make almost every time I talk because in our healthcare system, which I'm not here to talk about healthcare today, I think this has been a missing part. What does doctor mean? Well, if you know what doctor means, I don't know where I need to point this thing because it's not really working too good. There we go. The word doctor comes from the Latin word for teacher, educator. Let me just think about that for a second. there's so many awesome, amazing primary care physicians, specialists, surgeons in Lincoln. I've gotten to know a lot of them. I've worked hand in hand with a lot of them, collaborated and co-cared with a lot of them. But one thing that is missing often, I mean, how many of us have gone to a doctor and it's like 5 minutes and out the door? You have questions and they either don't have time or maybe they don't care, maybe they do, just depends. But it's just something that's been lost, like spending time with people, listening to their story, hearing their story, and then being able to better help them, right? So my point of saying this is, I don't know what I should do. Is Luke, is that your name, tech guy? What should I do here? Because this is not wanting to.
Just hit it on the keyboard, can you?
My computer is not hooked up to, should I do it on the, would the mouse do it? Okay, yep. Mouse will do it. Perfect. Okay, I'll just try to do that. I said this already, but I'm an educator at heart, and today, I usually am talking about health, like I said, but and I've been blessed to be able to actually travel the country and teach and educate in some different areas of my health career. But talking about business and entrepreneurship and the lessons that I've learned, I don't know if I've ever done that formally in a group. So that's why this is kind of exciting to me to do something a little different. And like I said, hopefully you guys can gain something from this. So in the beginning, I'm not a pastor. In the beginning, the way I just said this isn't Genesis, but in the beginning of my life, I just knew I was called to help people and serve. Like I just knew as I went through like high school and then college, I went to Nebraska Wesleyan University here in town, and didn't even declare a major until my junior year. I just knew I wanted to help people, and I knew that was going to be in healthcare in some point as I went through. And I thought I was set on pre-med. I thought I was going to go to medical school, probably in Omaha, do either family practice or something along those lines. And it really was through my own injury. I played ball at Wesleyan football, and through my own injury, I had never heard the word chiropractor before. Like I didn't grow up with it, I didn't know. And so I had a teammate who was gonna be going to chiropractic school, so he kind of was telling me, I got hurt playing and nothing was helping. So long story short is he had me go to this guy who's still on 33rd and O Street, Dr. Bo Bryson, and Dr. Corey Campbell was his business partner at the time. And I went and met those guys, they worked on me, and it was like a miracle, like something nobody else could help with. They, not only adjusted me, but they did some soft tissue manipulation and just so it opened my eyes to, wow, I can help people with my hands in a holistic way. And I loved using my hands. I also thought about being in construction and architecture because I just loved that part of things. And so anyway, sped forward, I ended up going to chiropractic school, but through chiropractic school, what people maybe don't realize is there's so many different avenues you can go down. You got to do the general studies, but I really specialized in sports medicine, sports injuries. When I came back to Lincoln and opened a practice, it was a lot of work comp, a lot of PI, but also just general patient care. But I worked on sports medicine teams for some of the universities here in town, and so it was a great experience. But basically, that's what happened. Is I went to school and met another guy down there that was from Nebraska, and we decided when we were in our last year that we were both wanting to come back to the area, so we would partner up. And I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but I'll never forget it. Because our grad school, which was in Kansas City, had a business coach, and he was a gentleman with years of experience. He had been retired, but he came back because he wanted to do business coaching. And he, and others, completely tried to derail, I guess, or really spoke against partnership. Because they said these things never end well, right? Like things like that. So anybody in a partnership? Okay, nobody in the room, maybe someone watching. We did it anyway. So we partnered up and we moved back to Lincoln and we opened what at that time was called Synergy Chiropractic Spine and Joint Center. And we were in the Madonna Proactive building was our first location. Inside of that, what they call Path of Health, where now Innovative Pain and Spine, if you guys know, that clinic has kind of took over our old space. But anyway, long story short is we started a new practice right out of school, and probably just more like just what was it called? Unconscious incompetence. Has anybody ever heard that? We were unconsciously incompetent. We didn't even know what we were getting into, but yet we made it work. right? And so my first point, I guess, today is, it doesn't look like anybody in here is necessarily like a new business owner or fresh out of school, but I'll tell you what, we made it work, and some good things came of this unconscious incompetence. I don't think we knew, graduating with $200,000+ in student loans and opening a business and all of this money, it's like we're happy. We're like, we opened a practice. We're going to do this, right? So sometimes unconscious incompetence can be a good thing. So the good things that happened, we were profitable very quickly. We were out of the red in less than 3 months, which was, you hear that in the business world. That's insane. Looking back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did we do that? We just hit the ground running. And in a new business back then, I don't know if I'd have the energy to do it now, but we volunteered our time. We created a niche in Lincoln. There was hardly anybody. I think there was 1 or maybe 2 people at that time who did the specialty work that we did, which is a technique called active release technique. It's just a soft tissue modality. We were some of the first in Lincoln to do that, my partner and I, and we created this niche. So we volunteered for any race, athletic event, weekend warrior, anything like that. And we would call the people up, and we got some no's, but most of the time they're like, you're gonna volunteer working on people? Absolutely, that's gonna be a benefit for our race. And we would just go set up a tent, set up our portable tables, and we would just, after people were done with the half marathon was one we did. We did so many 5Ks and bike events and triathlons around this area. That's how we got patients, because we were helping people on the spot, and they saw the value in what we did, like get up off the table and oh my gosh, my hip pain or my shoulder pain or whatever was gone. Like that attracted people. And so again, that's how we built the business, is we just did a lot. We just hit the ground running. We hustled basically. And we grew our practice fairly quickly. It started out with him and I, and his sister was our part-time front desk person answering phones and doing scheduling, right? So we grew from that into, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but we grew Synergy before its dissolution a few years back, which I'll get into that. I don't know factually, so don't quote me on this, but it was the largest or one of the largest chiropractic / rehab clinics in Lincoln. We had 5 or 6 associate docs at one time. We had a gym inside of our clinic with, a full-time gym manager, a couple personal trainers. It was very fun. It was fun, but it was grueling and exhausting at the same time, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. And the mistakes I made as being one of the owners. So it was an amazing experience with some failures along the way. But I don't think at this point I would take any of it back. You guys have heard that before. It's easy to say that. Oh, I don't regret anything. Like people say that sometimes. I think they're maybe fooling themselves or lying to themselves. But really, like I now, this many years later, and maybe I've matured a lot, is like I don't regret anything that happened. Because it really some of the hard parts are what I think has developed my character into what it is today, which I think is a pretty good character. But you guys be the judge of that. So, all right. So the bad, right? So the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't have an ugly on here, but the bad, the mistakes that I made. So here's just kind of a quick rundown. We wasted so much energy, so much time, and literal blood, sweat, and tears, because like when I say literal blood, like it was to the point where my business partner at the time, Brad, awesome dude, always will speak highly of him. We just didn't invest in so many different ways, but like when we were at the Madonna, our first practice, like it was a dirt floor and we had a contractor, of course, but we told them to save money, we want to do this, and this part of it. Like, some of the construction, some of the painting. Now that's okay. So we were right out of school, had a lot of debt. So that's kind of understandable. But fast forward 8 years, 7 years, however many years we were there, we moved our location to actually where my wife's practice is currently, which is right by Laszlo's, south on 56th and Highway 2, that area. It's right on the corner there. We bought the building and we gutted it and remodeled it. And guess who did a lot of the gutting on weekends and nights? It's like, why did I do that? Why did I not just pay someone? It's like, but to save money and like try. So my point is we just wasted a lot of time, energy, and precious time, even with my family, in order to like save a few bucks, right? But trying to reinvent the wheel, but more so than that, like physical part, like trying, even from the start of our first practice into when we moved into this new practice, is really trying to reinvent the wheel with business systems. Like, why were we trying to come up with everything ourselves and doing it all ourselves? And like, when there's, yeah, you might have to pay some money for a mentor or a business coach or a program or a system. Like, we just didn't do that. We just didn't do that. And that is definitely a big regret. And it's something that in my new practice with functional medicine, learned from those mistakes and getting other people that are smarter than me to help me. Really what it comes down to, you guys all have heard this before, where, you know, the philosophy of like, you never want to be the smartest person in a room, right? And like, you know, I don't know if I've ever been the smartest person in a room. I mean, this room's filled with probably brilliant people, and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if it's someone in the trades, the most world-renowned physician. I will learn something from whoever it is. And I tell you, this is another tangent that I wasn't planning on, but like, this is a cool group. But like, how many of you guys are involved in networking groups? I know, Patty, I've visited yours. So like CenterSphere, BNI, the ERN groups now. You know, that's one other thing we got involved with right away, was I joined networking groups. And I tell you, I got some business from those groups, but I look back on the years that I was involved in those groups, and it was so much more value for me to get to know people in all of these professions, get to know them, like them, and trust them. Not all of them. There was some that I was like, nope, never will refer to you, but that's valuable too, right? So it's like, get to know, like, and trust people, and then be able to point my patients or my family or myself and just learn things. It's just fun. Just knowledge is power, and it's just so fun to do that. So anyway, so I already said some of this. I probably will rant and then I'll fly through these, but we just didn't invest in things. What does this one say? So another mistake that I made as a business owner and leader was just not doing a good job delegating. How many of you guys struggle with delegation? Oh man, I'm gonna do it best. I'm gonna do it right. I know how I want it to be done. And part of that is our hiring process back in those days. You know, and the economy, and sometimes it's hard to find great people. Sometimes you can find good people, or maybe you guys have hired average people. And you guys know what I mean by that. It's not a knock on their personality or who they are as a person. It's more like, are you gonna, does anybody know Dr. Josh Axe? I know, yeah, you would. Dr. Josh Axe. He's a billionaire probably at this point. He's the co-owner of what's a supplement company called Ancient Nutrition. It's in every store around here even. So anyway, he's a functional health coach. He started as a chiropractor. Very similar story to me, other than I'm not a billionaire yet. So this is kind of one of the things that I learned with him is we joined his mastermind group, my wife and I, a number of years ago. And it wasn't cheap, but like, you get in a room of 20 people in Nashville, Tennessee with Josh Axe and then his partners talking, you take a lot away from that. So again, going back to my first point, my wife and I invested in that. And it was really her idea. She usually is smarter than me, and you know, she brings me kicking and dragging sometimes, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you were right about that. So it was an excellent, but he talks about 18 players. It's like, you don't want to have people on your team that are just there and it's just a job. And as hard as that is, and we had a lot of those over the years of our clinic, is we just couldn't find anyone, so we needed someone to do the role, so we hired, right? And it usually did not work out very well, right? I only had to fire, I think, 2 people in my entire career so far, so I'm blessed. But a lot of times it was more like, let's find you something else that fits your personality kind of situation, because I was always really bad at letting people go too. But you know, those excellent A-team players that are aligned with your vision, your goals, and your purpose as a business is so crucial. Okay, so we didn't do a good job at that. That's my point. We did not do a good job. So lessons learned. I think a big part of that was leadership. Like any failure in the business, whether it be with employees or anything really, I consider that, again, going back to the whole, I didn't fail, but yet this is on me. Like, I'm the leader of this company, this business. So it's always like trying to reflect back. Even when somebody like a team member would do an action that literally, okay, you could easily say, well, that's their problem. Like, they should not have done that. I still have the mindset now to think, okay, what didn't I do as a leader? What could I have done as a leader to maybe help them? Maybe they wouldn't have made that decision, right? And again, we can't control everything around us. We can't control everybody, but that just goes back to that mindset thing, right? Does anybody get that? You kind of understand what I'm trying to say? I'm probably confusing when I talk, but so outcome of that company, Synergy, was, I mean, financial success was not an issue. And again, good reputation from what I know. We were, our clinic, after those first few years of volunteering at races and stuff, I mean, it was just completely 100% word of mouth. We never did SEO website stuff. We never did social media marketing. We didn't do anything like that. And again, that's probably something I look back at now as a mistake, was not learning those things, because I do need them now in my business. But it was just word of mouth. It was just referrals. And also in the medical field, the healthcare field, I mean, it's not any, so if any of you guys know the chiropractic back then when I did that and medical, I mean, there's sometimes some misalignment there. There's some stereotypes, there's some blah, blah, blah. But getting to know people, working with them, collaborating with them, referring to them understanding what we did, we started to get referrals from primary cares, orthopedics, surgeons, et cetera, which is not super common in that profession of chiropractic. And it's getting more and more and more, but that was just a super cool thing. And just leading to what's best for the patient, right? I mean, obviously you got to have a team of people usually. So I already said that. So here's the deal. As the clinic grew bigger and bigger and bigger, I was the CEO basically. Me and my partner were 50-50, but we had just different roles in the company. But I was also a full-time clinician. I mean, 40-hour weeks were just not a thing. 40 to 50 hours of patient care, because we were that busy. And when I say trainer, I mean if we would hire someone, the gym, when we had the gym, the people that were doing classes and working with clients, our patients, I would train them. How does somebody wear that many hats? How many people feel like they wear that many hats? It's necessary and needed sometimes, right? So if you're in that situation, a couple of you guys raised your hands, bravo, keep trucking along, but really start thinking who, not how. Has anybody ever heard that before? Who, not how? So that's a book. Have you heard of that book? Get the book. Who, not how. I don't remember the author. I don't remember the author's name. I think that was another Axe thing, Dr. Josh Axe. I think he told me about that book once. What it basically means is, who do I need to hire, not how do I find more time in the day, or how do I do all of these things? How do I wear all these hats? Right? And their big thing, Josh Axe and all his colleagues and other people, is even when you feel financially you're just I can't hire someone else, that's probably the time you need to do it the most. Trying to figure that out. Now, I'm a realistic thinker. I'm oh my gosh, I can't afford to pay myself. How am I going to afford to pay someone else? You're putting yourself in a box. You will not be able to grow to the potential that you can grow if you stay in that mindset. Does that make sense? So I'd say first thing is for me, it was working on my mindset around that concept, who, not how, and then finally coming to terms with, okay, if I have to take out a little bit of a loan, or having faith too. If you run a quality business and you are good customer service, people are going to come, right? It's just a matter of maybe you're maybe you're the one holding that back based on your systems or what you're doing. So, and again, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking about myself. I'm looking in the mirror right now. This is exactly what I did. This is what I did. I got to the point on that bottom. I was so overwhelmed. I was burnout in every way possible. Physically, because the work I was doing, can you imagine 8-10 hours, which some of you probably can, massage therapists or whatever, but chiropractic is hard enough. Chiropractors that adjust people all day, we can hardly get disability insurance because they know hands, wrists, elbows, and shoulders are going to go. because it's just a repetitive thing. You can hardly get good disability insurance. And then on top of that, like the work that I did was so much even more hands-on. I'm like moving people's bodies, and like I had to keep myself in shape just to be able to do my job. Well, eventually that's gonna catch up to me. And it did. Physically, I was stressed out, burnt out. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, just all of it. Like I said, because of all the mistakes that I just talked about, I got to this point. It was over time. And again, thank God for my wife, because she saw it so much earlier than I did. And she would give me little warnings. I don't know if it's the next slide. Yeah, I was comfortable being uncomfortable in a bad way, because that stressed out, burnout, whatever that I was, what does that mean? It's because I was making a good living. I was providing for my family, and it's all I knew. This is what I spent my schooling, and all these years building this practice. How would I ever dream about letting that go? Like that would, I think back on that, I'm like, how terrifying that is. Like I spent this, like I said, blood, sweat, tears, energy, building this practice, but something inside of me, and my wife's name is Brittany, somehow she got in there and was talking to me, because it was her, but also, I mean, I'm a believer. I believe in God. And like there was a voice inside me that's like, that you can't sustain this. Like you need to find something else. And I ignored it. I mean, I don't even know how many years. I suppressed it, I ignored it. So take that for what you want. If you hear a voice inside of you, maybe listen to it. So be comfortable. It's not always the best thing, right? It's not always the best thing. Comfortable in the world's eyes, right? So like I said, financially, that's the only part of this that I was comfortable with, because I was not comfortable in many other ways, as I've already said. I was comfortable also with the work I did. I loved what I did. I loved helping people, and I really did help a lot of people. But I grew to not love it. I fell out of love with it. And I know that whole thing, like in a relationship, where they say you don't fall out of love, right? Well, if you truly love something, I did kind of start to fall out of love with it, right? Because I knew there was something bigger. So that was the key. It wasn't because I didn't love what I did, but I just had this inside of me, and at that time I had no idea what it was, but I was like, I just know there's something bigger that I can be doing than helping people with frozen shoulder and headaches and sciatica. There are so many awesome providers in Lincoln, Nebraska that can do that kind of work, and I was another one. What is it? So you guys kind of know where that's going to go, and I'm not going to talk about it a ton today, but it led me down the path of functional medicine, because it is literally the thing that I believe to my core. Number one, it should be primary care medicine, but like it's just like it's healing the body. Your body can heal itself. You just have to give it the lifestyle habits and also objective findings of what's actually going on in order to do so. Anyway, I digress, but I just knew there was something different and more. So a lot of the passion died kind of with that. Again, kind of just talking about, I was miserable. Has anybody ever woke up and they're just like, I don't want to go to work today. I dread going to work. Like that stinks. How is that a great way who wants to live like that, right? So it may not be the work you're doing though. So I guess that's my point today is, I think if I would have reinvented and not made all those mistakes that I already talked about, I probably would have continued to love what I did back then. But everything happens for a reason, right? And it led me to my new journey. So, stubborn, unwilling to get out of that comfort zone, but I think most of that was fear. Fear of losing everything, fear of not providing for my family, like 3 kids. Oh my goodness, we have 21 acres out in the country by Bennett. We have a herd of horses because it's my wife's passion and I like it too. But it's just like, you build a lifestyle. It's like, oh my gosh, if I leave this, is it all going to crash and burn? Like, I mean, that's a very realistic thing that can happen. Financial coach here in front of me, she's like, oh yeah, it happens. So has anybody ever heard this? Of course you guys have, but this was another phrase I heard years and years ago that kind of just like went in one ear, out the other at the time, but like something that I really have taken in is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Who's not heard that before? Has anybody not heard that? Everybody's heard that. So, and I'm not ashamed. If you would have asked me 5-8 years ago, this is sad to say, but it's just the truth. I'm a very honest, truthful person. It's like therapy, counseling, mental health. Oh, I don't need that. I'm good. You know, I'm a strong guy. Oh my gosh. Like I've done more therapy and counseling than probably everybody in this room combined, right? So, and it's not, that is something that I believe when I work with patients, it's something we talk about a lot too, because that's such a huge part of health is the mental health, the brain-body connection. But anyway, part of that was with this was it goes back to that mindset. Like anything that was uncomfortable in my life, whether it was my marriage, relationships, my business partner with Brad at the time, other coworkers, or just my own head, anxiety, stress, all these things, like learning how to sit with it, right? And for me, it was prayer, it was reading, books, it was listening to podcasts, but like also just sitting, like the hardest thing for me to do is just sit quietly. How many of you guys struggle with that? Just like I have a little, you can't tell this, but a little ADHD type, like I mean like all over the place all the time. But like high functioning ADHD, self-diagnosed, about 8 years ago. But it's like, I could not sit quietly. My brain would like go so it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work. But if there's one other thing I'd really encourage you guys to do is work on this. Okay, work on getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you have questions on what that means and how that would pertain to your life and your situation, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. But like I said, it can apply to just about every area, including obviously not just business, but relationships, finances, all the things. And yeah, I already said all that. So investing in people. So I don't know if anybody's ever had this problem. Sometimes it feels like it bites you in the butt a little bit, right? Like has anybody ever invested in a team member, maybe an employee, and then you invest time, money, effort into maybe training them, and then you get done with the training and they go find another job? Has that ever happened to anybody? Oh man, in a way that sucks, right? Like, but really, it's the mindset. It goes back to the mindset. What are we really here to do on this earth? And maybe not everybody agrees with me. This is my philosophy, but like I'm here to grow the kingdom, God's kingdom, and part of that is just serving people, right? Helping people with their vision, their goals, and their dreams. That's something that I'm preaching to myself here a little bit because I still struggle with that. But if I had a lot of associate doctors that worked for us, and in the chiropractic world back in that part of my journey, it's I think it's the average is like an associate goes to work for a clinic for like a year to a year and a half, and then they usually move on and want to open their own clinic. And that's the dream. Most of us go to grad school and we want to own our own business, right? Our own practice, whatever it is. And so in those first couple times that happened, what did I do? Oh, I'm a failure. Why didn't they want to stay? Or like a gruesome resentment towards some of these people too. That's so foolish of me. It was foolish of me and selfish. Like I should have done, and again, we did invest in them. In certain ways, but I should have not burned those bridges, which I didn't necessarily burn bridges, but like it was more inside of me. It more like burned my own bridges. Like what it did inside of me was far worse than what I ever said or did to those people that left. Does that make sense? So like, again, kind of this self-reflection, self-taught lessons, I guess. And yeah, some of this is screwed up, but developing people, like I said, serving them so they can, so you're in alignment with their vision, their goals. And usually the way that works out, if you actually do that, people stick around longer with you. right? I mean, usually that's the way it works out. That's the way it worked out for us over the years. So I just love, it's, I guess it's like a biblically based philosophy of servant leadership. That's kind of like if I'd have like one global description of like how I try to live my life, but also in business, is just servant leadership, right? So sacrificing, providing, developing, investing in people so that they can become better leaders as well. And then the world will obviously be a better place. So I said some of this earlier, but as far as business world, like mentorship, have you guys all done this, like invested in mentorship or trainings, leadership, personal development, like all of those categories? Some of you guys, that's awesome. I see a lot of heads nodding. So it's one thing early in my career that I didn't do, and I already said that, but specifically in the business world, but even in the even in the personal world, is I was so busy growing a clinic and seeing patients and doing the work that I did, I totally neglected self-care and personal development. And I think that's a trap. See some heads nodding. That's a trap that so many of us get into, is this culture, this world we live in is so chaotic and busy and stressful. And again, I could point you to research and science, but everybody's heard this, is like, yeah, we have all of these luxuries, so in a way our lives are easier compared to living in the 110-degree heat without AC and traveling across the prairies in a wagon, whatever. Like, that was a hard life. They did not have this amount, the mental, how much depression and anxiety and all of these things we see that then manifest as physical problems in so many people. Just the stress, the chemical stress that our bodies are under. I mean, again, I could go on that for hours, but like the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, the food we're putting in, the products we're putting on our body, our livers and kidneys are dying as we sit here. You could just watch them try to deal with all this chemical toxicity, and it's just and then that can manifest as a whole bunch. So anyway, why did I start talking about that? You tell me, right? That's what. Yeah, no, I kid. I was just joking because it's I go on tangents. But anyway, personal development, not ignoring yourself. Right, not neglecting. And when I became a father for the first time, so I have a 9, 7, and 4-year-old, this was one of the biggest regrets. Again, if I say I had regrets, it would be in those early years of their lives, not taking care of myself. And that sounds selfish, but it's like the old silly analogy you get on an airplane. They say, okay, if the oxygen masks drop down, make sure you put it on yourself first before you take care of your kids and wife and whoever, other strangers near you. Why is that? Because if you're passed out on the ground, you ain't a help to nobody. So self-care is something that I neglected for years. Mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. And that hurt everybody around me. And I'm talking about family, I'm talking about kids, but I'm talking about business too. My business suffered because of my own lack of self-care and development. I already said this a little bit, but there's so much free stuff out there. I mean, if you can't afford to have Dr. Josh Axe as your mentor or go to this, $3,000 training in Florida or something, then don't do that. Don't put yourself and be silly about financial mistakes. There's so much free stuff out there. Almost every week I'm taking a free training of some sort in the functional medicine space or the personal development space, because people are, content. There's so much content out there. Then it's just a matter of finding, good sources and not just listening to anybody just because they're putting out something free. And then asking. So back in the Synergy days, and then my wife's office Thrive as well, we had just dozens of interns over the years, whether it's Wesleyan students, Nebraska students. We'd have kids, young adults, I should say, come from the chiropractic colleges to our offices to shadow, to intern. And then even high schoolers too. And this, in high school, when someone's really thinking about a career in health, this is what I would tell them. Every single one of them, I would give them this advice, and that's still the advice I would give even to professionals, is ask. If you don't ask, right, what do I mean by that? So I'd tell a kid, Like you're not sure what you want to do, you're deciding between physical therapy, chiropractic, nursing, like dentistry, whatever it was, you gotta call and ask. Ask them to shadow, ask them to hang out, ask. You might get turned down 9 out of 10 times, but those 1 or 2 places and those people that say yes, you're gonna find so much value out of that. When it comes to a career, I would always tell these kids, like, it's more valuable for you to find out what you don't want to do than what you even do want to do. Like for me, back when I was thinking pre-med, I don't think I said this earlier, I was thinking family medicine, but I also was thinking pediatrics, being a pediatrician. This was before I had kids, way before I had kids. I had a couple nieces and nephews that I was the cool uncle. You know, you hang out with them, you play, you give them an annoying toy, and then you send them home. That was my experience with kids. So I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. Oh my gosh. That would have been a mistake at that point in my life. Going to work and hearing screaming, crying kids all day, I would have probably been in the insane asylum. Now, fast forward 8-10 years, I've worked with a ton of kids. And it was like, it was one of the best parts of my career has been pediatrics. But at that time in my life, oh, that would have been a disaster. So my point is ask for, you know, in you guys' roles right now with maybe owning businesses or whatever, ask. Maybe it's me, maybe it's her, maybe it's one of the other people sitting here. Ask them to have coffee, ask them. So many, how many of you guys have ever done that before? You want to ask somebody some advice or you want to like have a meeting with them and then you just don't do it because you're afraid to do it? Who's done that before? All of us, probably. I see a lot of hands. I've done it a lot. Is like, oh my gosh, like I could have, if I just would have asked, they might have turned me down. But we're running on. I think I'm getting close here, so we're going to be good. I think I kind of said this earlier, but one of the things that I have heard so many times over the years was, and this was just one example, a lady that stood out to me is I'll never forget. She came in as a new patient of mine and was like, 8 years ago, you helped me and took the time to talk to me and show me things at some race. I'm pretty good with faces, but I didn't even recognize her at this point. And she's like, and now I'm coming to see you because I know you can help me. Like, I mean, that's the kind of impact you can have on people. You never know. It might not create business right here and now, but the relationships that you're developing on an everyday basis, you never know how it's going to pay off. So don't burn bridges was kind of my point there, is burning bridges with coworkers, with partners, business partners, with whoever it is. Just do your best. Do your part in not burning those bridges. And when Brad and I decided we were going to shut down Synergy, you know, that can go real bad. I mean, it's like it's a business divorce, right? Has anybody ever been through that? I don't know if anybody's ever been, but it's this fairly large clinic. We have a lot of equipment, and then also like, you know, you get into the lawyers and like is someone going to take the name? And if you take the name, you have to pay for it because it's valuable. And oh my gosh, we hardly had lawyer bills because him and I just decided we're going to sit down. We respect each other. We've been business partners for 10 years. And I think I could speak for him, but I respect the man as a man, number one, as a provider as well. And I think I say it in here too, is I still refer him patients. I mean, it just was it was hard. Don't get me wrong, it was a hard business decision, but we just knew we were going separate directions. Going back to that internal pull I had, I knew eventually I was going to get into functional medicine. It didn't happen that second, but I knew I was going to start doing that, and that was not going to be cohesive in what Synergy's vision and goals were. So we decided we were going to part ways, and we just made it amicable. We just sat down, we just talked things through. We had hard conversations, but in the end, it worked out really, really great. So don't burn bridges as best you can. Yeah, I already said that. I refer him, and even we had, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 maybe different associate doctors over the years, and a lot of them are still in Lincoln. Some have moved on. I referred almost all of them, even the ones that like back in the early days where I was like a little resentful. Oh, how dare they do this to me? I refer to them, right? Create relationships. I have coffee with them. I have lunch with them all. So no bad blood. It just doesn't do any good. This is. And probably the last thing I'm going to talk about, which will be perfect, is has anybody ever studied or looked at, thought about this? Agreement versus alignment. So this is also something that I try to implement in business, but also in my relationship, like anything. My gosh, if you're married, for sure, this is something that I wish I would have been told 15 years ago, and it would have saved a lot of ache and pain and heartache. Agreement versus alignment. Agreement focuses on actions, right? So do you agree with me on this business decision? No? Okay, then what are we gonna do? Like, there can create animosity and arguments and resent and contempt and just all of these not great things. But alignment ensures everyone shares the same vision, goals, and definition of success. So if me and you are business partners, you're Brad in the day, we knew we were aligned in our goals, our vision, our goals, and all the things, right? But we did not have to agree on everything. That's an impossibility when you're dealing with people, right? You're never going to agree with everybody. So sometimes he and sometimes I compromised and said, okay, I trust you. I know you have the vision, and I know we're in alignment. We are in alignment. We do not agree, so I'm going to give you this one. And then hopefully he would give me one later, and we kept a scorecard. No, I'm kidding. You don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that in your marriage either, right? So, but does that make sense to everybody? There's a huge difference between alignment and agreement. And if you can really kind of wrap your head around that and get that mindset, but then that also goes back to, if you have a team of people that you're a leader of, you got to make sure everybody's in the vision and the alignment of the goals, right? So again, that's a whole nother challenge in and of itself. Already kind of said that. So basically all of that, what I do now in my practice is I just, a number of years ago, I just was like, okay, now's the time. I got out of my comfort zone, took a huge leap of faith, and I kind of said this earlier, why did I make this huge move from like this successful practice into like an unknown? And really, because that's what it was, because functional medicine is the most amazing thing in healthcare. And I don't just say that because I do it. I could have done anything I wanted. Right? I could have done anything I wanted in healthcare. And I chose it because it works and it's amazing, and you know that, right? But it still was such a huge leap of faith, because it's not something that, there's probably 80% of you in here who have no idea even what functional medicine is. I mean, it's just still like a lot of people don't know. So it was a huge leap of faith for me, starting a new business from the ground up. But here's where it comes down to, is because I fell in love with it. I knew it was my calling. I knew the real reason was because I knew it was the thing that I was going to impact people's lives with the most, right? Versus what I had done for 15 years almost in the brick and mortar practice. I know I'm going to have a bigger impact on people's lives doing this than I did then, okay? So that's the why for me. And that's also what I encourage patients on almost every new patient when I work with someone, is like, what's your why? Have you guys ever thought about like that? What's your why? What's your why? And you could apply that to any decision you make, but what's the why behind the work you do? What's the why behind, this business decision? What's the why behind it? If you truly get in touch with your why, like, it makes these things a lot easier. Sometimes, it makes the hard decisions easier, etc. So that was my why, is like, I know I'm going to impact people. I'm going to change lives, and I'm going to change generations. And this is where, like, years ago, you start talking like that, I would have been like, oh my gosh, you're kooky. But like, literally, you think about this, you change someone's life now, you will change generations to come. And I don't care what you guys do, like every profession. Like I said, I don't care if you're a blue collar worker, office white collar worker, the best surgeon in the world. Everybody can impact people on that level, because you can do it in what you do. Oh my gosh, I never thought I was going to go back to school and take classes and take exams and all that again. I actually told people I will never do that again. I made it through grad school, and I mean, whew. So I did it, right? I did the hard thing that I didn't want to do. And I'll tell you, it's been worth it 100%. So follow your calling, even when it gets uncomfortable. So, like I started this whole talk with, the word doctor means teacher, right? So I'm blessed to be able to work with people as their doctor, but also their coach. I consider myself more of a coach and a guide and an accountability partner than even maybe their doctor. So functional medicine, if you don't know, is also known as root cause medicine. So we're trying to, it's a comprehensive approach. So I'm talking to people and working through mental health, through habits and lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, literally every part of your life that you need help with. Everyone's different. So I might focus on these 2 areas with you and 2 different areas with you, but basically coming up with a plan of attack to get your body to be able to heal from the inside out. Right? So that's what functional medicine is in a 30-second or less thing. And this is another part of business, though, that I never, if you told me this a few years ago, 5 years ago, I would have said, you crazy. Because I'm not a very techie person, but I'm almost 100% virtual. I'm working with people from Florida, South Dakota, all over. Right? So my reach that's so cool because there's enough people in Lincoln, but yet to be able to help someone's friend in Florida or family member somewhere else has been so cool to see. And learning systems of technology, it's a part of the business world and entrepreneurship that obviously you have to keep up with, right? Has anybody started messing with AI yet? I've done some work with AI, and I could probably learn a ton from you guys because it's something that I need to do more of, but these are the kind of things, right? The more systems you make, the more efficiency you make. You guys all know that stuff. You've heard that stuff probably from other people sitting in these chairs. It's all about systems and efficiency. And then AI is going to obviously help with that. So, changing with times. So, yeah. I didn't even time that. We got 30 seconds to spare. I appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully you got some. Bye, Patty. Hopefully you guys got something, and I'm happy to stick around.
We started late, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So does anybody have any questions?
And this is my cell phone number. You guys, my email's on the bottom, but also I'm just going to let you guys have my number. If you guys have questions or anything, just let me know. So.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. Yeah.
Today. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I have a whole list of announcements. I'm going to try to get, the last one is hard for me. So our summer break starts today, so there'll be no more perk ups until August 1st. We had scheduled to have lunch at Course next Thursday, but they had another event and we weren't able to have lunch then. So on August 1st, Aaron Stala will be present, and they own Stala Services. So if you know anything about them, they're the fancy porta potties. So they've really built their business up, and I have been in one of them, and they're absolutely amazing. If you go someplace and you're used to the old-fashioned ones, the new ones will blow your mind. So we have rescheduled our lunch at Course, and that will be Thursday, July 11th. So you can join us for lunch on main campus. So with that, if you haven't been to the Course, it's all student run. It's absolutely an amazing experience. The students serve you. It's part of the hospitality program. So we would love to have you join us for that. And lastly, Ray is leaving us. Ray has taken a position in China. She will be teaching, which she has done before. Brooke and I are heartbroken that she's leaving because she has been really the glue that has really kept us together. And I'm sorry. I thought I could handle this. Her last day is August 16th. So since we're taking a break, we wanted to let you know that she will be leaving in August. So please take some time to visit with her, to learn about her new experience. And we're very, very excited about her leaving. Kind of what Dr. Keller talked about. I would not want her to be anywhere else than the decision that she has made because of the mentorship and things like that have happened. So please take some time time, and we're going to miss her dearly. Again, I'm very sorry about that. And that's all that I have for the, on this shouldn't be the last thing because you gave a very presentation.
That's all right.
Please feel free to stay afterwards and talk to Dr. Keller, to network. That's what this is all about. So enjoy the break, enjoy the longest day of the year today, and make the best of that. So thank you everybody for coming.
If anybody wants info, I have cards up here too. So thanks for having me.
Could you say anything more about the transition? You talked all about the build-up.
Oh, your goodness.
Your kids and your work stress, and then you decided to do something new. But I mean, what was that? I mean,
Yeah.
talk an hour about.
No, yeah. So long story short is, so Synergy dissolved. And so then we took that space that our practice was in and basically gutted it again. And my wife's practice, which is called Thrive Family. So, well, she was over by South Point. We moved her office in after we remodeled. And then basically in the transition is her and I worked together. So I basically worked for her, seeing my patients and just we just saw her patients as I was studying functional med and basically going back to school. And so that transition over 3 years until I, started full-time functional med. So it's kind of a transition out. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, because there was challenges with that. I mean, working with a spouse and her being my boss, and it was a different model of care too, where Synergy, we were really well known for, like I said, sports medicine, injury, pain management. Thrive is actually prenatal and pediatrics specific.
More holistic too.
More whole, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Acupuncture and stuff.
Yep.
Eastern medicine.
Yeah, so my wife is acupuncture certified. I am, how do I put it? I got trained in what's called integrative biomedical dry needling, which is acupuncture and dry needling, Eastern, Western, meet in the middle. And that's what I would do. So.
One bridge, you don't want to burn, right?
Yeah.
Your wife.
Right. That wouldn't be good, right? So.
Well, thank you so much.
Great question. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah.
Take one of your cards, 'cause
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
some questions for you. Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Tell me more about you. So I got questions for you too. Can I take this off or?
Yeah.